At 3:17 a.m., while his sick wife slept beside him, a small-town school bus driver became one of the richest men in America. By 9:31 a.m., he was in handcuffs. Have you ever been so desperate that you considered doing something you never thought possible? What if I told you that the person trusted to drive your children safely to school had just pulled off one of the most sophisticated cybercrimes in history? How did a humble bus driver steal $35.4 million in less than 6 hours? And what single mistake brought it all crashing down? Welcome back to True Crime Case Notes, where we explore the most shocking criminal cases that reveal the darkest corners of human nature. I'm your host, and today we're traveling to the quiet suburbs of Millbrook County, Pennsylvania, where trust, desperation, and technological genius collided in the most unexpected way. This isn't your typical heist story. There were no guns, no masks, no getaway cars racing through city streets. Instead, it happened in a basement, with nothing more than a computer, years of planning, and a man pushed beyond his breaking point. Meet Roderick Hawthorne, or as the children on his route knew him, Mr. Rody. For 12 years, he drove the same yellow school bus through the same residential streets, picking up the same sleepy-eyed kids every morning at 6:15 a.m. sharp. He was the definition of reliability. A soft-spoken man with graying temples who never missed a day of work and always had a kind word for the children in his care. But beneath this facade of ordinary suburban life, Rody harbored secrets that would shock everyone who knew him. While his neighbors saw a simple bus driver living modestly in a small ranch house, driving a 15-year-old Honda Civic, the truth was far more complex. You see, Rody possessed one of the most sophisticated understandings of financial systems and cybersecurity that anyone in Millbrook County had ever encountered. And when his world began crumbling around him, when medical bills threatened to destroy everything he held dear, that knowledge became a weapon more powerful than any bank robber had ever wielded. The numbers are staggering: $35,427,891.33 stolen in under 2 hours. 7 different countries involved. 12 cryptocurrency exchanges. Dozens of shell companies. All while his wife battled a life-threatening illness just upstairs. But here's what makes this case truly extraordinary. It wasn't the complexity of the crime that brought Rody down. It wasn't the FBI's resources or their cutting-edge technology. It was a single $50 test transaction that he'd made 3 weeks earlier, a tiny digital footprint that would lead federal agents straight to his door in exactly 354 minutes. If this story already has you hooked, smash that like button and let's explore this incredible tale of desperation, genius, and fatal mistakes. Because what you're about to hear will challenge everything you think you know about crime, technology, and the lengths a desperate person will go to save the ones they love. This is the story of how an ordinary Tuesday morning in October 2023 became the day that changed everything for Roderick Hawthorne, his family, and the children who trusted him with their lives every single day. For 12 years, bus number 47 had been Roderick Hawthorne's kingdom. Every weekday morning, without fail, he would arrive at the Millbrook County School District Depot at exactly 6 a.m., complete his pre-trip inspection with methodical precision, and begin his route through the tree-lined neighborhoods of suburban Pennsylvania. The children adored him. While other drivers might grunt their morning greetings or barely acknowledge their passengers, Rody knew every child's name, asked about their spelling tests, and remembered which kids needed extra encouragement on difficult days. To 8-year-old Tommy Martinez, Rody was the friendly man who always waited an extra 30 seconds when Tommy's shoelaces came untied. To shy Rebecca Chen, he was the adult who made her feel safe during her first weeks at a new school. But what none of these families knew, what none of his co-workers suspected, was that their trusted bus driver possessed a background that made him uniquely dangerous. Before his yellow school bus days, Rody had spent 8 years as a systems analyst for Meridian Financial Group, a mid-sized firm in Philadelphia. While his neighbors saw him tinkering with old computers in his basement workshop, they assumed it was just a hobby. They had no idea that those late-night sessions involved studying Federal Reserve protocols, analyzing cryptocurrency exchange vulnerabilities, and mapping the digital infrastructure of the global banking system. When Meridian downsized in 2011, Rody had taken the school district job as a temporary solution. 12 years later, temporary had become permanent, but his expertise in financial systems had only grown sharper. The transformation from respected employee to desperate criminal didn't happen overnight. It began with a diagnosis that would shatter any family's sense of security. Lydia Hawthorne's autoimmune disorder had appeared without warning in early 2020. What started as fatigue and joint pain quickly escalated into a rare condition that required experimental treatments not covered by their insurance. How many of us have watched medical bills destroy our financial security? The Hawthornes discovered that even middle-class stability could crumble in months when faced with a healthcare crisis. The numbers were crushing. Monthly treatment costs, $12,000. Insurance coverage, $3,000. Out-of-pocket expense, $9,000 every 30 days, with no end in sight. Within 18 months, they had exhausted their savings, liquidated Rody's retirement fund, and mortgaged their modest ranch house twice. But Lydia's condition continued to worsen, and the treatments became more expensive, more experimental, more desperate. Just when the financial pressure seemed unbearable, another crisis emerged. Rody's 78-year-old mother, Francine, suffered a stroke that left her requiring round-the-clock care. The assisted living facility cost $8,000 per month, money the Hawthorne family simply didn't possess. Rody found himself trapped between impossible choices: his wife's deteriorating health, his mother's desperate need for care, and a school bus driver's salary that couldn't begin to cover either crisis. The stress began affecting his work. His supervisor, Janet Morrison, noticed Rody's distraction during safety meetings. Where he had once been the first to ask questions and offer suggestions, he now sat quietly, his mind clearly elsewhere. His perfect attendance record remained intact, but the easy smile and patient demeanor were showing cracks. Late at night, after Lydia had fallen asleep and the house grew quiet, Rody would retreat to his basement workshop. Surrounded by multiple computer monitors and stacks of technical manuals, he began researching something far more complex than computer repair. He wasn't planning a crime, not yet. He was simply exploring possibilities, studying systems, understanding vulnerabilities. After all, knowledge itself wasn't illegal. But knowledge combined with desperation? That was about to become the most dangerous combination in Millbrook County's history. Those 8 years at Meridian Financial Group had taught Rody Hawthorne more than just how to analyze data. They had given him an insider's understanding of the most vulnerable moments in the global banking system. During his time as a systems analyst, Rody had specialized in automated clearinghouse protocols, the digital highways that move trillions of dollars between banks every single day. He knew that every major financial institution relied on scheduled maintenance windows, brief periods when security protocols were temporarily relaxed to allow system updates and patches. Most people working in finance knew these windows existed. What made Rody different was his obsessive attention to timing patterns. He had spent months documenting exactly when different systems went into maintenance mode, how long they stayed vulnerable, and what types of transactions could slip through during those critical minutes. The Federal Reserve's ACH system, he discovered, had approximately 6-minute windows every Tuesday and Thursday between 3:15 and 3:21 a.m. Eastern Time. During these periods, transaction verification protocols operated in a reduced capacity to prevent legitimate government transfers from being delayed during system updates. But Rody's real breakthrough came when he realized something that even seasoned financial crimes investigators had missed. The government was sitting on billions of dollars in what he called digital ghost money. These weren't stolen funds or active accounts. They were forgotten pension payments to deceased recipients, unclaimed tax refunds from people who had moved without leaving forwarding addresses, and abandoned Social Security deposits that had been accumulating in federal coffers for decades. The government had already written off this money as uncollectible, but the accounts remained active in the system. Was this really stealing? Rody convinced himself it wasn't. He was reclaiming money that would otherwise sit unused forever, funds that no individual would ever claim because their rightful owners were either dead or unreachable. In his mind, he wasn't robbing victims. He was cleaning up bureaucratic waste. The planning took 8 months of meticulous preparation. Working in his basement after midnight, Rody constructed a digital maze designed to move money faster than any fraud detection system could track it. First, he established 17 shell companies across 5 different states, each with legitimate business licenses and tax identification numbers. These weren't fly-by-night operations. He had actually registered them as computer consulting firms, complete with websites and phone numbers. Next came the cryptocurrency infrastructure. Rody opened accounts with 12 different digital currency exchanges, from major platforms like Coinbase to smaller, less regulated exchanges in countries with minimal oversight. He studied the conversion rates, transaction speeds, and reporting requirements for each platform. The most complex part was creating what he called bounce networks, Systems that would split large transfers into thousands of microtransactions, route them through multiple countries, convert them between different cryptocurrencies, and eventually consolidate them into accounts he controlled. He tested every component obsessively. Small transfers of $10 or $20 to verify that his routing systems worked. Practice runs with cryptocurrency conversions to ensure the timing was perfect. He even created fake transaction logs to see if his digital footprints could be traced. By September 2023, Rody had built what was essentially a private financial network capable of moving massive amounts of money across international borders in minutes. All he needed was the courage to use it. What Rody didn't know was that while he had been perfecting his system in his basement workshop, the FBI had been perfecting something of their own. A new artificial intelligence program called Sentinel had just gone online, designed specifically to detect the kind of sophisticated financial crimes that traditional monitoring systems missed. The stage was set for a collision between human ingenuity and artificial intelligence, a battle that would be decided in exactly 354 minutes. October 15, 2023. A date that would forever change the Hawthorne family and shock the cybersecurity world. At 2:45 a.m., Rody sat in his basement, staring at 3 computer monitors displaying real-time Federal Reserve System status updates. Upstairs, Lydia slept fitfully, her latest round of experimental treatments leaving her exhausted and weak. In just over 3 hours, he would need to begin his morning bus route, collecting children who trusted him completely. But first, he was about to commit the crime of the century. At exactly 3:17 a.m., as the Federal Reserve's automated clearinghouse entered its scheduled maintenance window, Rody's fingers began flying across the keyboard with surgical precision. The first phase involved accessing the dormant account database, thousands of forgotten government accounts containing unclaimed funds that had been sitting untouched for years. His entry point was a vulnerability he had discovered in the system's backup authentication protocols, a security gap that existed for exactly 6 minutes during each maintenance cycle. Within 90 seconds, Rody had identified 3,847 qualifying accounts. These weren't random selections. Each account had been dormant for at least 5 years, contained funds that exceeded the government's recovery threshold, and belonged to individuals who were either deceased or had no forwarding addresses on file. The transfers began at 3:19 a.m. Rather than attempting one massive withdrawal that would immediately trigger every fraud detection system in existence, Rody executed his digital rain strategy. He initiated 3,847 simultaneous micro-transfers, each ranging from $2,000 to $45,000, designed to look like routine government payments, Social Security deposits, tax refunds, veteran benefits. Each transfer was routed through a different pathway in his carefully constructed network. Transfer number 1 went from a dormant pension account to a shell company in Delaware, then immediately converted to Bitcoin through a cryptocurrency exchange in Estonia. Transfer number 847 moved from an unclaimed tax refund to a consulting firm in Nevada, split into 3 separate amounts, converted to Ethereum through exchanges in Singapore and Switzerland, then reconsolidated in a digital wallet registered in Malta. The sophistication was breathtaking. While traditional bank robbers might steal from one vault, Rody was simultaneously accessing nearly 4,000 digital vaults, moving money through 7 different countries, and converting it through 12 cryptocurrency platforms, all while the Federal Reserve security systems operated in reduced capacity. By 3:45 a.m., Phase 1 was complete. The transfers had been executed flawlessly, and Rody's network was automatically processing the cryptocurrency conversions. But he wasn't finished. Phase 2 involved what he called ghost laundering, moving the digital currency through multiple exchanges to eliminate any traceable patterns. Each Bitcoin purchase was immediately split into smaller amounts, converted to different cryptocurrencies, and transferred to new wallets. Ethereum became Litecoin, which became Ripple, which became Monero, a digital shell game operating at computer speed. The beauty of the system was its automation. Rody had programmed every step in advance, creating algorithms that would continue processing transactions even after he stopped actively managing them. While he monitored the progress, the network operated independently, moving money faster than any human investigator could possibly track. At 4:23 a.m., the cryptocurrency conversions were complete. Phase 3 began: consolidation. All the scattered digital assets began flowing toward a series of offshore accounts that Rody controlled through his shell companies. The funds moved through banks in the Cayman Islands, investment firms in Luxembourg, and digital wallets registered in countries with minimal banking oversight. By 5:15 a.m., nearly 2 hours after the first transfer, the final tally appeared on Rody's screen: $35,427,891.33. In less than 120 minutes, using nothing more than his basement computer setup and years of planning, a small-town school bus driver had become one of the wealthiest men in Pennsylvania. Rody felt a mixture of relief and terror as he watched the numbers settle into his accounts. The money was safe, hidden behind layers of digital encryption and international banking laws. He had used VPN connections routed through 4 different countries, proxy servers that masked his actual location, and cryptocurrency platforms that prioritized user anonymity above all else. He was untouchable, or so he believed. At 5:47 a.m., Rody shut down his computers and headed upstairs to shower before beginning his morning route. In exactly 3 hours and 44 minutes, FBI agents would be knocking on his door. But at that moment, watching the sunrise through his bedroom window, Roderick Hawthorne felt like the smartest man alive. This is getting intense. Are you Team Rody or Team FBI? Let me know in the comments below. At 3:54 a.m., 37 minutes after Rody's first transfer, Special Agent Patricia Valdez's secure phone buzzed with an urgent alert from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Rolling out of bed in her Arlington apartment, she had no idea she was about to begin the most intense manhunt of her 15-year career. The message was brief but alarming: Sentinel alert, Level 5 financial crime in progress, $35 million plus, multiple jurisdictions, immediate response required. Sentinel was the FBI's newest weapon against sophisticated cybercrime, an artificial intelligence system that had been quietly monitoring federal financial networks for just 6 weeks. Unlike traditional fraud detection software that flagged suspicious transactions after they occurred, Sentinel analyzed patterns in real time, identifying complex criminal schemes as they unfolded. While Rody had been executing his digital rain strategy, Sentinel had been watching. The AI detected something that no human investigator would have caught: 3,847 simultaneous transfers from dormant government accounts, each routed through different pathways but all originating from the same geographic region during a specific 6-minute window. Agent Valdez dressed quickly and drove through the empty streets of Washington, D.C. toward FBI headquarters. A graduate of MIT with a master's degree in cybersecurity, she had specialized in financial crimes that crossed international borders. She had tracked money through Swiss banks, cryptocurrency exchanges, and offshore shell companies from Hong Kong to the Cayman Islands. But even with her experience, the scope of this operation was staggering. By 4:15 a.m., Valdez was seated at her workstation, studying Sentinel's analysis. The system had identified the crime's 3 phases and was already tracking the money as it moved through the criminal's network. What impressed her most wasn't the amount stolen, though $35 million was certainly significant, but the sophistication of the execution. "This isn't some amateur hacker," she muttered, scrolling through the transaction logs. "Whoever did this understands federal banking protocols better than most people who work for the Federal Reserve." At 4:30 a.m., her partner agent Derek Tomlin arrived, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing the grim expression of someone who had been briefed on the situation during his drive to the office. "Please tell me Sentinel caught this before the money disappeared completely," Tomlin said, settling into the workstation beside her. "It's worse than that," Valdez replied, pulling up a real-time tracking display. "Look at this routing pattern. 7 different countries, 12 cryptocurrency exchanges, dozens of shell companies. This person has been planning this for months, maybe years." For the next 2 hours, the 2 agents worked methodically through the digital maze that Rody had constructed. They traced Bitcoin conversions through Estonian exchanges, followed Ethereum transfers through Singapore, and tracked Monero transactions through platforms that prioritized user anonymity above all else. The cryptocurrency conversions were brilliant, each designed to break the connection between the original theft and the final destination. Traditional investigators would have needed weeks to follow money through this many jurisdictions and conversion points. But Rody had made one crucial mistake. At 6:45 a.m., while examining the cryptocurrency exchange logs, Tomlin discovered something that made him sit up straight in his chair. "Patricia, look at this," he said, highlighting a transaction from 3 weeks earlier. September 24th, 11:30 p.m. A $50 transfer from one of the same dormant accounts to a Bitcoin wallet. Same routing pattern, same exchange sequence, but much smaller amount. Valdez leaned over to study the screen. He was testing his system. And testing it from the same IP address range as last night's operation. The $50 test transaction was Rody's fatal error. While he had used sophisticated VPN networks and proxy servers for the actual heist, he had been less careful during his trial run 3 weeks earlier. Sentinel had tracked that small transfer to its source, an internet service provider in southeastern Pennsylvania, specifically serving customers in Millbrook County. By 7:30 a.m., the FBI had narrowed their search to a geographic area of approximately 50 square miles. They were looking for someone with advanced computer skills, recent financial stress, and access to high-speed internet. Agent Valdez coordinated with the Philadelphia field office and the Pennsylvania State Police, requesting immediate surveillance of the target area. They needed to identify their suspect before he realized that his perfect crime had been detected. At 7:45 a.m., as federal agents began positioning themselves throughout Millbrook County, Rody Hawthorne was stepping into a shower, completely unaware that the most sophisticated manhunt in Pennsylvania history was closing in on his location. The irony was almost too perfect. While FBI agents studied traffic patterns and internet service records to identify their target, that target was preparing to drive a school bus full of trusting children through the same neighborhoods where federal agents were now conducting surveillance. But Rody had no idea his perfect plan had one fatal flaw. A tiny $50 mistake that was about to cost him everything. At 8:45 a.m., Roderick Hawthorne climbed into the driver's seat of bus number 47 for what would be the final time in his life. He had showered, dressed, and kissed his sleeping wife goodbye, just as he had done every weekday morning for 12 years. He felt calm, almost euphoric, believing that his perfect crime had succeeded beyond his wildest dreams. 2 miles away, Agent Valdez was coordinating the most delicate arrest operation of her career. "We have a problem," she told the assembled team of FBI agents, Pennsylvania State Police, and Millbrook County Sheriff's deputies gathered in the parking lot of a closed gas station. "Our suspect drives a school bus full of children every morning. We cannot, absolutely cannot, attempt an arrest while those kids are in his custody." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They had identified their target, they knew his location, and they had overwhelming evidence of his crimes. But they were powerless to act until he completed his morning route and returned those children safely to school. "How long is his route?" asked Sheriff Martinez, a 20-year law enforcement officer who had never dealt with anything more complex than drunk driving arrests. Agent Tomlin consulted his notes. According to the school district, approximately 45 minutes. He picks up kids from 8:45 to 9:15, then drives them to Millbrook Elementary. He should be back at the transportation depot by 9:35. Agent Valdez checked her watch. 8:52 a.m. They had less than an hour to position their teams and prepare for the arrest, all while watching their suspect drive innocent children around the neighborhoods they were supposed to be securing. At 8:58 a.m., Rody pulled bus number 47 up to his first stop on Maple Street. 7-year-old Emma Rodriguez climbed aboard, backpack bouncing, chattering about her upcoming spelling test. Rody smiled and asked about her new puppy, just as he had every morning for 2 years. 3 blocks away, FBI surveillance teams watched through binoculars as the yellow school bus continued its route. They could see children boarding at each stop, their faces pressed against windows, completely unaware that their trusted driver was now the target of a federal manhunt. "This is insane," muttered Agent Tomlin, speaking into his radio from an unmarked car positioned on Oak Avenue. "We're watching a fugitive who just stole $35 million help kids with their backpacks." At 9:03 a.m., bus number 47 stopped in front of the Chen family residence. Rebecca Chen, the shy girl who had struggled with her first weeks at a new school, ran toward the bus with her homework folder clutched tightly in her small hands. She had finally made friends in her new classroom, and Rody had been part of helping her feel comfortable and safe. Agent Valdez felt the weight of the situation pressing down on her. Every instinct as a law enforcement officer demanded immediate action, but her responsibility to protect those children took precedence over everything else. They would have to wait, watching helplessly as their suspect continued his normal routine. At 9:11 a.m., the last child boarded bus number 47. Tommy Martinez, the boy whose shoelaces always came untied, was running late as usual. Rody waited patiently while Tommy's mother helped him gather his scattered school supplies, never showing any sign of the stress that should have been consuming him. The drive to Millbrook Elementary took 14 minutes. For Agent Valdez, Those 14 minutes felt like hours. She followed the bus at a distance, coordinating with teams positioned around the school to ensure that no children would be endangered when they finally made their move. At 9:25 a.m., bus number 47 arrived at Millbrook Elementary School. One by one, the children filed off, shouting goodbye to Mr. Rody as they ran toward the building. Several kids waved from the school steps, and Rody waved back through his side window. He had no idea it was the last time those children would ever see him. At 9:27 a.m., Rody began the return journey to the transportation depot. Agent Valdez and her team moved into final positions, surrounding the facility where they would make their arrest. The school district had been contacted and briefed on the situation. No other drivers or staff members would be endangered. At exactly 9:31 a.m., precisely 354 minutes after Rody had initiated his first illegal transfer, bus number 47 pulled into the Millbrook County School District Transportation Facility for the final time. Rody completed his post-trip inspection with the same methodical care he had shown for 12 years. He checked the mirrors, tested the emergency exits, and filled out his daily maintenance report. Everything was in perfect order, just as it always was. He was reaching for his lunchbox when Agent Valdez approached the bus. "Roderick Hawthorne," she called out, her badge clearly visible. Rody looked up through the driver's side window and smiled with surprising calmness. "I suppose you're here about the transfers," he said quietly. The 354-minute countdown had reached 0. Agent Valdez had arrested hundreds of criminals during her 15-year career, but she had never encountered someone quite like Roderick Hawthorne. As she approached bus number 47 with her badge displayed, she expected to find a panicked fugitive or a defiant criminal. Instead, she found a man who seemed almost relieved. "Roderick Hawthorne," she called out through the open driver's window. Rody looked up from his paperwork with an expression of calm resignation. "I suppose you're here about the transfers," he said quietly, his voice carrying no surprise whatsoever. "Yes, sir. FBI. I need you to step out of the vehicle, please." What happened next surprised everyone present. Rather than attempting to flee or protesting his innocence, Rody carefully placed his pen back in his shirt pocket, gathered his paperwork into a neat stack, and set it on the dashboard. He then removed his keys from the ignition and placed them precisely on the hood of bus number 47, just as he had done during thousands of routine inspections. "The keys go to Janet Morrison, my supervisor," he said, stepping down from the bus with his hands visible. "She'll need to assign someone else to Route 47 immediately. The children are depending on their ride home this afternoon." As Agent Valdez read him his rights, Rody asked only one question: "How long do I have before the money needs to be returned?" "Mr. Hawthorne, that's not really how this works," Agent Tomlin replied. "You don't get to keep stolen funds while you serve your sentence." Rody nodded slowly. "I understand. I just need to know if there's enough time to arrange my wife's medical care and my mother's assisted living payments before the accounts are frozen." The investigation that followed revealed the full scope of Rody's sophisticated operation. FBI cyber forensics teams spent 48 hours tracing his digital maze, recovering approximately $34.8 million of the stolen funds. The remaining $600,000 had been lost to cryptocurrency exchange fees and international transfer costs, the price of moving money through such a complex network. Rody cooperated completely with investigators, providing passwords, account numbers, and detailed explanations of his routing systems. He showed no remorse for the theft itself, but repeatedly apologized for what he called letting down the kids on my route. "Those children trusted me," he told Agent Valdez during his interrogation. "I've been their bus driver for years. Some of them have been riding with me since kindergarten. They're going to ask questions, and they deserve better than having their bus driver disappear without explanation." The charges came quickly: multiple counts of wire fraud, computer fraud, and theft of government funds. Each charge carried potential sentences of up to 20 years, but Rody's cooperation and the recovery of most stolen funds worked in his favor during plea negotiations. On March 15, 2024, exactly 5 months after his arrest, Roderick Hawthorne was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. During the sentencing hearing, his attorney read statements from dozens of parents whose children had ridden bus number 47, describing Rody as kind, patient, and genuinely caring toward their kids. "Mr. Hawthorne is not a career criminal," Judge Patricia Williams observed during sentencing. He is a man who made catastrophic decisions while facing impossible circumstances. However, the sophistication of this crime and the amount stolen require significant punishment. The aftermath touched everyone involved. Lydia Hawthorne's medical treatments were eventually covered through a victims' compensation fund established by the recovered money. Rody's elderly mother, Francine, was moved to a state-subsidized care facility where she could receive proper attention without bankrupting the family. But perhaps the most heartbreaking consequence was the confusion among the children who had trusted Rody for years. Emma Rodriguez asked her parents why Mr. Rody had stopped driving their bus. Tommy Martinez wondered if he had done something wrong that made his favorite driver go away. Rebecca Chen, the shy girl who had finally found comfort in her new school, worried that she would have to start over again with a different driver. The school district held special assemblies to help children understand that sometimes adults make serious mistakes, but that didn't mean the children were at fault or unsafe. Counselors worked with families to address the complicated questions that arose when someone they trusted had done something so unexpected. Janet Morrison, Rody's supervisor, still keeps his final paperwork in her office, a perfectly completed post-trip inspection report filed just minutes before his arrest. It serves as a reminder that even the most reliable people can harbor secrets that no one sees coming. The children on Route 47 eventually adjusted to their new driver, but some still ask about Mr. Rody and wonder why their favorite bus driver suddenly disappeared one ordinary Tuesday morning in October. The story of Roderick Hawthorne forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about desperation, morality, and the thin line between ordinary citizen and sophisticated criminal. His case became a landmark study in how financial pressure can transform even the most trusted members of our community into people we never thought possible. What makes Rody's story particularly chilling is how relatable his circumstances were. Medical bankruptcies affect hundreds of thousands of American families every year. Elder care costs devastate middle-class savings accounts daily. The difference was that Rody possessed knowledge that most people don't have, and that knowledge became a weapon when desperation reached its breaking point. The advancement of fraud detection technology played a crucial role in this case. Sentinel, the AI system that caught Rody's sophisticated scheme, represented a new generation of cybersecurity tools designed to identify patterns that human investigators might miss. Within months of this case, similar AI systems were implemented by banks and financial institutions worldwide, fundamentally changing how digital crimes are detected and prevented. But perhaps the most important lesson involves recognizing the warning signs of financial desperation in ourselves and others. Rody's transformation didn't happen overnight. It was months in the making. His supervisor noticed his distraction during meetings. His perfect attendance remained intact, but his demeanor had changed. These subtle shifts often signal when someone is facing overwhelming pressure. The human cost extends far beyond the financial numbers. Lydia Hawthorne received the medical care she needed, but at the cost of her husband's freedom and her children's sense of security. Francine Hawthorne got proper elder care, but lost her son to the federal prison system. Most heartbreaking of all, dozens of children lost a trusted adult figure who had been a stable, caring presence in their daily lives. The children's questions, "Where's Mr. Rody?" and "Did we do something wrong?" remind us that criminal actions create ripple effects that touch innocent lives in ways we rarely consider. Emma Rodriguez, Tommy Martinez, and Rebecca Chen learned at young ages that adults they trust can harbor secrets that change everything. From a cybersecurity perspective, Rody's case exposed vulnerabilities in federal financial systems that led to immediate policy changes. The 6-minute maintenance windows that made his crime possible were restructured to include additional security protocols. Dormant government accounts now undergo regular audits to prevent similar exploitation. His method of using microtransfers to avoid detection thresholds led to new algorithms that analyze transaction patterns rather than just individual amounts. The cryptocurrency routing strategies he employed prompted international cooperation agreements for tracking digital currency across borders. The case also highlighted the importance of financial planning and community support systems. How many tragedies could be prevented if people facing medical bankruptcies had better resources for seeking help? How many crimes might be avoided if families knew about assistance programs, medical payment plans, or community support networks before desperation takes hold? What do you think? Was Rody a criminal mastermind or a desperate man pushed too far? Share your thoughts below. Was his crime justified by his circumstances, or do the ends never justify the means? I'm genuinely curious about your perspective on this complex case. The story of the 354-minute millionaire serves as a reminder that extraordinary crimes can emerge from ordinary desperation. It challenges us to examine our own moral boundaries and ask ourselves, what would we do if faced with impossible choices? How far would we go to save the people we love? Most importantly, it teaches us to recognize when someone in our community might be struggling before that struggle transforms them into someone we no longer recognize. Rody Hawthorne remains in federal prison, serving his 12-year sentence. Lydia continues her medical treatments, now covered by victim compensation funds. The children on Route 47 have adjusted to their new driver, though some still remember the kind man who knew their names and cared about their spelling tests. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, subscribe and hit that notification bell. We've got more incredible true crime stories coming your way. And remember, the most extraordinary crimes often come from the most ordinary places. Stay curious, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next case.